Loving Sai Ram, Mr. Jean Massey, the Sri Satya Sai Global Council of Trinidad and Tobago lovingly welcomes you to the series Awake, Unite and Inspire. We are once more very happy, privileged, and honored to have you once again as our guest on this evening's program. So, Brother Jean, my first question to you, and I want to begin with a quote of Swami where he says, "Do you think I would confront you with pain were there not a reason for it? Open your heart to pain as you do now for pleasure, for it is my will wrought by me for your own good." Brother Jean, when I look at your life from the last interview and your biodata, you have faced and experienced many, many challenges in your life. Your life seems to have been a riches to rags story. You had amassed large, huge amount of wealth. You had luxurious cars, lived in big houses, lavish dinners, etc. So you were living a life that was maybe envious of many. And now you, at this stage in your spiritual development, you live a very simple, humble life based on needs. How were you able, because I know and I have to say with Swami's grace, all of that was basically taken away from you in more ways than one. How were you able to navigate those challenges? What were some of the life lessons learned along the way from living a lifestyle like that to a very simple one today?
You know, that's probably the most important question you could ever ask anyone, not necessarily about me, but about anyone in that situation. If you can imagine having immense wealth, having notoriety, having your picture on the cover of magazines, being respected in your business, anyone in that situation, as we say in Hollywood, you start believing your own PR. You start believing that you're somehow smarter than others, and that you should be telling others what to do, and that anything that you do is better than others in some way, because you have all of these wonderful things. This universe is supporting your ego. Your universe is making you bigger. Swami has said that when you think you know, your downfall is inevitable. And I know that now. But first of all, let me say that when I was in that position, I also claimed to be a devotee. I also claimed to follow the teachings of Sai Baba. And so if you can imagine what Swami goes, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with this guy? My devotee is on the wrong track. Oh my goodness, he's not living a moral life. He's chasing after everything that I tell people to not chase. He's not at all concerned about death. He's just having sensory experiences. So what am I going to do with this guy? I imagine that Swami thought. As a matter of fact, let me tell you a story. It was around 2007 or so, might have been 2006. A friend of mine had access to Swami and could actually ask him a question. And he asked Swami, what about Jean Massey and his difficulties? He's having so much difficulty. And Swami said, oh, Jean Massey, tell him that I said that he was going to lose his life. And I changed that. And I'm giving chills telling you about this now. Swami said Jean was going to lose his life, and he changed that. And in order to change it, I had to give him a number of difficulties, a number of years of difficulties, excuse me, a number of years of difficulties. So, and Swami gave me a number of years of difficulties. They included losing everything, all the wealth and everything went. There was one point where I honestly, telling the truth, I went down to wash my clothes and I didn't have the quarters to put in the laundromat machine. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I found some rupees in a drawer from a previous trip to India. And I went up to the bank back when you could, a few years back. I cashed in the rupees to get a few dollars so that I could wash my clothes and get some food. That's how bad it was. And so Swami said, first of all, I got to take away all that money. And he made me a beggar. I lost all my money, and I ran up my credit cards, and finally my credit cards were full, and I had no more money or credit card that I could borrow from. I borrowed from people in the Psi organization. They're so giving. I was borrowing money, and I got to the point where I couldn't borrow any more money. I'd already asked everybody for the money. And so I remember I had 3 times, I had a notice on my apartment door, pay the rent or get out. And I didn't know what I was going to do because I didn't have any money left on my credit cards and I didn't have anybody I could borrow from. And I didn't know what I was going to do several times. And each time something happened. And Swami provided for me. But I remember standing at 3 o'clock in the morning once in my living room, and I couldn't sleep because didn't know what I was going to do. I had a notice on the door to get out, and I was thinking about sleeping in my car and what am I going to do? And I knew somehow in my soul that Swami was orchestrating this. And I said, okay, you know, whatever you got to do to me, Swami, I'm willing. And slowly, over a period of years, things got a little bit better. For many years, it was every month. What am I going to do? I don't have any money. I'm not working. And I'd get some little job making a video or something and just enough to get by. But essentially, what Swami had to do to help me was make me a beggar and make me glad to have a biscuit. A cookie. I'll take anything. I'm broke, so desperate. At the same time that he did this, I would get calls from people that would say, would you come to Australia and film all the Psi service here? And I said, I don't have any money. I can't come anywhere. We'll pay your way. And so they would send me a ticket to go to Australia. John Boehner sent me to 8 countries in Central and South America to film service activities in Psi schools and Psi medical camps. And somebody paid for me to go to Africa. I went to 9 countries in Africa filming Psi schools, Psi service, wonderful service. So at the same time that I was broke, Swami let me meet devotees that were using their wealth properly. They were living the life of a devotee, and I got to meet these people. I got to meet everybody. I got the satsang of all time because I got to meet people that were genuine devotees. They took all of their resources to use in service to Swami. And so by seeing these things, at the same time that he pounded on me, he also blessed me by meeting these people. And I began to be a cameraman in the ashram, and they put me in Shanti Bhavan, made me feel like a VIP. I told them, I'm not a VIP unless you think I'm a very irritating person. But I got treated like a king by the Psi organization. And that was part of the way that I was transformed from being this guy chasing after everything to trying to be a servant of Swami and being part of his mission. And you know what? It's better. The people in the Psi organization are so much better than people in the movie business because they really care about one another and can help you and are out to serve people. I watch some of these awards shows on television, and it's pretty much all egos, And then I see the side work and what's going on. And it's a much better life than, and I had always wanted to be a director. So Swami let me be a director. I get to direct sci films now instead of a big Hollywood director. And I'm happier. Now, you may know that Swami gave me a wife 2 years ago. I had never had I'd never had a wife before in my whole life. I was 72. I got married for the first time. She was a girlfriend of mine 37 years ago and wanted to get married. And I said, well, I don't know if you're getting married. And she left me because I didn't want to get together with her. And so when I was 72, 2 years ago, she called me up and her husband had died. And she said, do you remember me? I said, of course I remember you. And we got together. And I realized this is a wonderful girl. What happened was she was meditating and Swami came to her. This is her here. This is Karan. Swami came to her in her meditation and said, you should call Jean Massey. Now, this is 37 years later, right? And she remembered that I was interested in Sai Baba. And so all of a sudden, Sai Baba comes to her in her meditation, says, you should call Jean Massey. And she's thinking, Jean Massey? Really? And so she called me up and we got together and 6 weeks later, we got married. So Swami gave me a wife and I tell her that she's a gift from God. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman like I've never known. And I'm very happy with her. And she helps me stay on the path. She says, oh, we don't really need to go out to dinner. I'll cook dinner. We don't need to waste the money of going out to dinner. And so she keeps me on the path. And she says, why don't you go do this service or go do that service? And she's a very good guide for me. You know, men need a woman like that to help them stay on the path. I'm sure you have a wife that keeps you on the path. And so now I do too. And so anyway, that's my story from being a troubled soul, chasing after the things of the world. And now I'm getting better on the path. Swami's not through with me, I can promise you. But this is what it's all about. Swami's path is the path of transformation. It's the path of one type, changing from one type of person to another. And at first, you think, well, you can't do all these fancy things you used to do? You mean I've got to go feed the homeless instead? And then you realize after you do this, it's so much better. And you feel the love by doing this type of service. There's a story that I love to tell because it was so profound for me. There was a man at a gas station and I was getting gas. And he came up to me with a handful of corroded batteries. And he said, man, do you want to buy some batteries? And I looked at him and I said, are you hungry? And he said, man, I'm so hungry. I haven't had anything to eat in 3 days. And I looked around and I could see across the street a Mexican fast food place. And I said, if you go over there and wait for me, as soon as I finish getting the gas, I'll come over and I'll buy you some food. He said, are you really going to do that? And I said, I promise you, if you just go over there, I'll be right there and I'll buy you some food. So I saw him walking across the street, looking back at me like, are you really going to come over here? And he did. I did. I went over there and went inside and there's a big menu up there and he got a couple of burritos and a Coke and everything. And he came outside and sat down on the curb and I sat down next to him. And as he was eating, he started crying. He said, nobody ever did this for me. I just got out of prison and nobody ever gave a damn about me before. And I started crying. And it touched me. He was so hungry, you know, and I was able to give him some food. And you cannot do something like that without it changing your heart. And that's what Swami wants us to do. He wants the change of the heart so you can experience that divine love flowing through you. That's what he's looking for from us. And that's what he wants us to do to change the world. Because if people become like that, they won't bomb each other. They won't steal from each other. They want to help. Once you experience that love, you realize it's better than a Ferrari. I thought a Ferrari was, I want to get a Ferrari. I want a nice fancy, I want to be a big shot and ride around a Ferrari. Once you experience this type of love, working in an orphanage, I had a little kid, his arms around my legs in an orphanage as I was filming. I looked down, there's the cutest little African-American boy. This was in Gabon. Once you do these things, you're never the same. And so that's why Swami has us do these things, is to do this type of service.
Brother Gene, that was absolutely amazing and inspiring what you just shared there. And it had me thinking, and as you were speaking, I was jotting down some notes. And Swami says the rich are spiritually poor, and the poor are spiritually rich. And one day a devotee asked Swami, he said, Swami, I have noticed that you're only attracting the rich people to yourself and granting them so many interviews, and you're discarding the poor folks. And Swami told him, he said, you know why I do that? I attract the rich to myself, transform them so that they can take their wealth and help you, the poor. So that leads me to the second question, but which you have already basically answered. Because when you are living this very wealthy lifestyle in your Ferraris and dinners and all the other things that go with it, the fame, the popularity. As one guy said, he feels he's even richer than God. So when you compare that lifestyle now, the joy that you felt from those things outside of yourself, you know, having a nice car and eating nice food and living a certain lifestyle, the pleasure and happiness was coming from things outside of yourself. And now Swami stripped you from all of that and now allowed you to do things that were purposeful and significant to the society. And that brought about an inner and lasting joy. So the second question was, when you analyze where you were before all the wealth, and now with just fulfilling your basic needs, do you feel that you are in a much better space right now?
I don't see how I could be any better than I am now. I've got a loving wife who we live in a one-bedroom apartment in Los Angeles. Now, normally, and we go everywhere together. She doesn't drive. She's got glaucoma, so she's not able to drive right now. We go everywhere together. We hold hands everywhere we go together, and she is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I have a simple life. She's a wonderful cook. She knows how to make these special. I basically eat a salad every night. And she's come up with, as a matter of fact, you can go on my Facebook page and look up what's called a California confetti salad. And it's made with cabbage and all kinds of wonderful chopped up things that she makes, all vegetarian. And it couldn't be any better. Now, I've learned to appreciate that sort of thing rather than a meal out in a restaurant. You know, I took her to an Indian restaurant. And she says, "Oh, this has got all kinds of salt in it and everything. It's not good for you." And I said, "I know, but it's tasty." She says, "Yes, but it's got too much salt in it, and it can't be good for you." So she's very health conscious, but we live a simple life. I have a 96 Honda, which is a very nice car. You know, it's better than the new Hondas even. It's got better visibility. It gets 30 miles to the gallon. So I'm not suffering at all. I'm happy. And we live in a nice part of town. We have a one-bedroom apartment in a section of Los Angeles called Brentwood, which is a very nice section. My office here, at one point, this office had I was 5 months in arrears with the rent, and the landlord still didn't kick me out. Unbelievable. In Los Angeles, you think you're going to stay in an office for 5 months without the landlord asking you to leave? And I told him, I said, someday I'm going to be able to pay you. And he believed me. And now I'm actually have the rent paid. I'm paid up on the rent. And so for me, my apartment rent is paid and my office rent is paid, and I have a client that I'm working for. And so I've got money coming in, not a lot of money, but it pays the bills every month. And so I don't see how. Now, look, if I had a ton of money now, what am I going to get? I might have a bigger apartment, might have a fancier car. I couldn't eat anymore than I do, you know. So, you know, maybe I can buy some fancy clothes or something, but I really don't need any more than what I've got. You know, I'm comfortable. We're warm. We got an apartment that's warm and comfortable, and we've got a car with gas in it, and we come to the office and it's nice here. It's got a heater. So I'm quite happy. It's a good life, and we're both healthy. We both don't have, you know, health problems. So we've got so much grace, and we're so thankful for it, both of us. And the simple life is what's really good, I think.
Wonderfully said, Brother Gene. And as you were speaking, it reminded me of Swami's teaching on putting a ceiling on desires. So you are basically fulfilling your basic needs. And as you rightly said, as we grow older in life, especially, I mean, eating healthy is good throughout your life, but especially as you grow older, you need to eat healthier. Because when you look at the price of becoming sick, it's frightening. When you look at medical bills and hospitalization, etc. So having a healthy lifestyle,
She's a nutritionist.
Oh my God! Well, you're even more.
I lost about 17 pounds since I got married. You know, usually guys that get married, they get fat. I got thinner. I had a big stomach like this. People will tell you, what happened to Gene? He used to have a big stomach like this. I was eating chocolate bars, and I was going down to 7-Eleven and getting all the junk food and everything. And she says, no, now in the afternoon, we have a little snack. We have a little yogurt and a few blueberries or something. And she's so concerned about eating properly now. And instead of I used to get these bags of chips, all these salty chips things, you know, in the afternoon. And now what she does, she actually consults with people for nutrition, and she says, well, you have to have something. You can't just say no more chips. Can't do that. You get something. So you get a little yogurt and some blueberries. You know, it's very nice. And you still get a snack, you just don't get the salty chips, you know. And so that's what I recommend, and she recommends for people. Don't have nothing, you know, have something that's good for you. I used to have big chocolate bars, you know, and I used to eat 2 chocolate bars a day, you know. And my A1C went down from 6 something to 5.1. I quit eating all that candy, you know.
So, Gene, this is so wonderful to hear. And as you rightly said, you just need to make little adjustments to your particular lifestyle, and it brings about so much benefits. And then, as you said, your wife is a blessing, because here you have somebody who loves you, who cares for you. And in that caring, she wants to ensure that you live long, you live healthy. And, you know, I remember in an interview, Swami said, WIFE, if you get a bad wife, his worry is invited forever. But if you get a good wife, his wisdom invited forever.
That's right.
You're a very wise man. So you've gotten a very good wife in so many areas, so many aspects. And that truly, as you said, Swami's grace and his divine blessings. Wonderful. You know, Brother Jean, the name of our series is Awake, Unite, and Inspire. And Swami that name just came out of the blues with his divine grace. But when you look around in the world today, Swami also says unity leads to purity and purity leads to divinity. But when you look around in the world today, you will see, you can't help but observe that there's no unity in the family. There's no unity in relationships. There's no unity in organizations. So many people, if you have 11 people having a discussion, you have 12 different opinions, you know? So this lack of unity is also prevalent amongst leaders in the world, which has led to wars and so much of killing and suffering and pain. So my question to you is, how do we achieve unity? What needs to happen to keep us and to have us united in such a way that we can live in harmony with each other from the individual right down to the national level?
Well, I mentioned this before, and I don't know what you possibly do with people that are already in a high position because they believe their own PR or they believe in their own power. And those people, it's hard to change. I mean, we have that in all sorts of organizations where there's someone that thinks they know better than everyone else, whether it's a church or a country or a business. I deal with a lot of clients that think they know, and very often I'm not able to help them because they're stuck in their way of thinking. And I don't know what to do about that. I think you just have to leave that up to Swami. Swami said to Dr. Upadhyaya, when he was asking him once about, what do? I go to these situations and I can't help someone. I don't have the medicine to help them, or I don't know what to do, or they have something that's incurable. What do I do? And Swami said to him, give them some vibhuti and leave it to me. And so in many situations in the world, they're just going to have to go through their karma. You're not going to be able to help them. And so, I tell very often I say, don't read the bad stuff on the internet or don't watch the bad program on television. Concentrate only on the good. Love the good. See love everywhere. All we can do is work on ourselves. We can't help those unless they want help. All we can do is spread love. Now, I've seen people be changed by love, by doing service. There was a man in Miami, and he was a corporate raider. He would go in and buy up the stock of a company, get a controlling interest in it, and then steal everything of any value from the company and then sell it. He even stole people's pension money. Very often a big corporation would have hundreds of millions of dollars of pension money in a company, and he would take over the company and take that money out of the pension and give it to himself. He would actually steal people's pensions. Well, he got caught. He had a very fancy lawyer, and he went before the judge, and the judge says, he was 82. So the judge says, since you're 82, we're going to give you community service. And he said, oh, thank you, Your Honor. Oh, no, listen, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the first day you're late or you miss, you go to federal penitentiary. So all of a sudden, this billionaire who'd been stealing pensions was standing in a food line feeding homeless people all day long. And people would come up to him with tears in their eyes, thanking him for the food and stuff. And it changed his heart. He saw how he'd been wrong. You know, even I think it was Andrew Carnegie realized that he'd made a lot of his money from child labor in the latter part of his, as he got close to death. He started the Carnegie Mellon Foundation and started doing great charity things because he realized, you know, I made this money on kids, you know. And so anyway, Victor changed his heart and he began to build shelters, and they built an eye clinic and everything else. So that service, that seeing, like I talked about the exchange with the man who was hungry, that service can change our heart. And that's what I recommend. Whenever I give a talk somewhere, I talk about what you can do to change your heart. And I also talk about two things. There's something called vasanas in Sanskrit, you know, they're wishes, your desires. And you can have Malina vasanas or you can have Shubha vasanas. Malina vasanas are the things that we want that are binding, that keep us in this world and want more things from the world, more money, more riches, a bigger house, and take advantage of people or whatever. Malina vasanas, bad wishes. You can also have Shubha vasanas, which are good wishes. I want to sing bhajans to the Lord. I want to go to do service. I want to have satsang with good, holy people, those kinds of desires. And so that's what Swami recommends, is you go do good work with good people, and that will help change your heart. And you read the teachings, those things will help you awake and even inspire others from your own behavior.
Wonderfully, wonderfully said, and so inspiring, Brother Gene, that sharing. Thank you so much. And it leads me to the next question. Again, you know, when you look around in the world, in the society, we see a lot of selfishness. If I go back to one of Swami's quotes, he says, self is the lovelessness, love is selflessness. And we see a lot of people who are only for themselves. And you see it in organizations that are spiritual in nature as well. You know, he says the self lives by getting and forgetting, but love lives by giving and forgiving. How do we become more selfless and less selfish? Because the world is crying out for more love, for more selflessness, for people of character, for people to be doing good and being good and seeing good. How do we become more selfless to the extent that we can truly make a difference?
Well, I think I don't know how to change people myself. All I could say is to try to only see the good in everything and not worry about the bad people in the world, and just try to spread good everywhere you go and see good. You know, Hitler loved dogs. As bad as he was, he still had a little spark of love in him. As bad as he was, killed millions of people, he still loved dogs, you know? And so you see the love in someone. You know, I'm not saying you love Hitler, but I'm saying if you know, instead of looking at someone and saying, how can they do that? That's terrible. Look at that person. There's no good, you know? Oh my gosh, they're doing so much evil. Try to focus on whatever it is that's good all the time. See love everywhere. And that's the only thing I can recommend. You're not going to be able to change some people. You might be able to help them change their vibration just by your presence. If Swami walked into the room with us, we would be very conscious of doing the right thing, you know, and his mere vibration of walking into the room would change everyone. Just his darshan would change everyone. And someone once said to Swami, there's so much evil in the world. Swami said, no, there's so much love in the world. It's so good. There's so much love. And so Swami was essentially saying, don't focus on that. And he said, what's it like? He asked the person, he said, what's it like just before darshan, before I come out? He said, oh, Swami, it's very peaceful and quiet, and we're anticipating you're coming out. He says, and then what happens if you hear a baby crying? It disrupts everything, doesn't it? He says, yes, Swami, we don't want to hear a baby crying when waiting for darshan, and that ruins everything. He says, no, the quiet is still there. You're focusing on the baby crying. He says, just focus on the quiet and ignore the baby crying. And so it was a wonderful talk from Swami about how to focus on the good all the time. Don't worry about what somebody's doing bad. Don't worry about how terrible things are in the world. Just find something good to talk about or to see, or to talk about the love, spread love everywhere, see love everywhere. That's all we can really do. Now, that in itself might change some things for the better. You're not going to go over and say, that person's not doing it. We have a problem in our center where one person says that person's not doing enough service. They won't come to the service activities. And they call them up and tell them, you should come to the service activities. Why are you not coming to the service activities? And then you have a problem between people. And then they said, I'm not coming to the service anymore, to the center anymore, because they made fun of me. And they said, I don't do enough service. And she shouldn't have talked that way to me, whatever. And so that's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about you're policing other people. We're talking about changing your heart, so that you only spread love. You only do helping. You're always doing good wherever you can. That's all we need to worry about, ourselves. And spread that love everywhere. And that's all I can recommend. I don't know how to change other people. I can only work on myself.
Absolutely true, Brother Gene. No matter what you do, you can't change anybody else. They have to want to change themselves, and only they can change their situation. You can inspire them by your example, but eventually they are the ones who have to make that effort to bring about the change.
Well, some people changed me. By my association with them, I saw, oh, this is how you live. They're so loving, they're so kind, I was raised in a family where you verbally punished anybody as much as you could. Don't do that. What are you doing that for? Don't put that there. What are you, crazy? Don't put that there. That shouldn't go there. That was my family. And arguing and fighting. I used to run next door to get the sheriff to keep my stepfather from killing my mother. So, I grew up in a family that was very difficult. So one of the things that I need to work on more than anything, and I still, sometimes it sneaks out with my wife. She says, why would you talk to me that way? And I said, because I came from a background where everybody said cruel things, to one another. And so I still have tinges of that in my psyche. And so that's something I'm trying to work on, that Swami says, speak less and with more sweetness and self-control. And that's something I still very important, is that speaking sweetly everywhere you go and being nice and spreading love. Because I saw that when I traveled all around. I saw these people that are so loving, so sweet, and so loving. And I saw, oh, this is how you should be. And so humble, very wealthy, important people that were so humble, like a child, And so that's what Swami wants us. Jesus said, except you become like a child, you won't see heaven. So we all have to be and that's one of the things when we get high up in any kind of organization and we start believing our own PR, we start believing that we know better. Let me show you how everything should be done. And so that's the challenge, is to stay sweet and kind and loving all the time.
Yes, and while you were speaking, it reminded me of the Christian hymn. If there be peace in the world, let it begin with me.
That's right.
Swami says there could never be world transformation unless individuals change. So it starts with you and I. And as you rightly said, Swami's greatest miracle is not multiplying food and making rainbows and materializing rings and pendants. His greatest miracle is the personal transformation that takes place in the hearts of so many millions when they are touched by his divine love. That is his greatest miracle. And as you were talking, Brother Jean, about seeing good, because essentially everybody is good. We may do bad things, but Swami addresses us not as embodiments of sinners. He says embodiments of the divine Atma, because we make mistakes and we sometimes do wrong things, but essentially we are divine beings. And it reminded me, and I'm sure you're familiar with this story where Jesus was walking along the road. His disciples were a little further ahead of him, and they saw this dead dog lying on the road, and each disciple said, "Oh, what a bad smelling dog. They should remove it. It's causing a nuisance. It has a bad smell." And when Jesus reached the dog, Jesus said, "What beautiful white teeth this dog has." So whereas the disciples were dwelling on the negatives, Jesus chose to see the positives. So a very beautiful lesson you've given. And no matter how bad a person is, there's always some good in them. So focus on that good, magnify it, intensify it, and eventually the good will overcome the bad. So
Yes.
thank you for sharing that. That's a very beautiful, beautiful message. But the transformation must begin with each and every one of us. That is how we can create a better society. So, Brother Jean, you know, before the interview, you and I were chatting about what should be discussed. And you suggested that a very important aspect of our spiritual life is how we view, how we treat death. And when you again look around in the society, there's a saying, when you look around, people are living as if they will never die, and they are dying as if they had never lived.
Yes.
So they become so attached to position, to wealth, to family, to children, that we feel that this is what is the true reality. And we really do not prepare for what you might call the afterlife. You know, and you made a statement that death, you should treat death as your advisor. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, upon whom be peace in Islam, said, death, you should treat death as if it is like your shadow. Wherever you go, it accompanies you. And if there is one thing in life that is absolutely certain, is that you must die. The physical body must die one day. The uncertainty of death is what is another issue. You know you have to die, but you don't know when. So, from that perspective, I remember you also shared that Dr. Hislop asked Swami, Swami, I would like to come back in the Prema Sai incarnation. And Swami told him, no, there's no need to come back. But we keep coming back, birth after birth, janam after janam, to learn these lessons of life, of how not to take birth, not to be reborn. What are your views on this particular aspect of death and how we should treat it in such a way that we understand the inner significance of what our true identity is?
Well, as you know, as Swami teaches, we are immortal, and we're not, we cannot die, really. The body dies. He gives a wonderful example of you're at your mother's bedside in the hospital, and the mother dies, and you start crying. Why? Your mother's body is still there. What is it that you're crying for? You're crying for that soul. That soul is no longer talking to you. That soul has passed on. And so that's a wonderful example of the fact that we are not the body. Otherwise, you wouldn't be crying. Your mother's body is still there. You long for that life force that you can talk to your mother. But to answer your question, it's not easy to think about death. We want to think about what we're going to do that we might enjoy tomorrow. You know, we have a tendency to think, you know, that we're not going to die. And I want to, every day we chase desires. Every day is our life is filled with chasing desires. What do you want to do? Well, I think I'll go have some ice cream now. That'd be fun. Or I think I want to go see a movie now. Or I think I want to go see my friend John or whatever. We want to fill our life with our desires. Very few of us think about passing and going out of this world. During the day, we think about what can we do that we might enjoy. We don't think about, oh, die. I don't want to die. And yet, if we could prepare ourselves, that would be the best thing that we could do, is get ready to die and think about, and because that thought will modify our actions. If you know that, if you constantly think about how much time do I have left? What am I doing with that time? How can I help the world? All of those things would color what you do and take you on the right path. So if you can think about how temporary your life is, it will color your actions so that the things that you do take you on the right path. Now, not all of us are going to come back. Some might go on and merge, and some of us are going to come back. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that. I know that Hislop asked Swami, he said, I want to come back and see Prema Sai. And Swami said, it would be better if you didn't. And yet, I don't know if you know the story of Hislop has been reincarnated. I was told this story and told me not to tell, but I'm going to tell anyway. That a mother had a dream that about her 4-year-old son, and in the dream, Swami came to her and said that her son is Jack Hislop. And so she told the person about this, and they said, well, let's take him to Buddha party and see what happens. You know, maybe Swami would see him or something. And what happened was they took the mother took the boy to Buddha party. And as Swami's cart was going by, the boy said, Swami, where's my ring? Mother never told him anything about a ring. And he told his mother, we're supposed to be sitting up there on that with those other people. Because he'd been sitting on the veranda, Hislop been sitting on the veranda. He says, no, we're supposed to sit up there. We're not supposed to sit out here. And so how would he know those things, you know? So, and that's all I know. I haven't heard anything about this. And this is some years back when Swami was still with us. But that's an example of, you know, what Swami said about the afterlife. It'd be better if you don't come back. It'd be better if you merge. But most of us come back. My theory is, and it's only a theory, is that we come back because we want to have sensations, and we're caught by the world. You know, you've heard the story of the man who was dying, and he surrounded his whole family with him in his last moments, and everybody, he was very happy. and he's got his whole family there. And then all of a sudden he realized, oh, who's minding the store? So our attachments is the problem, you know, whatever we're attached to. So anyway, that's all I know. I'm not a philosopher, and I'm certainly not anybody that's any wise man or anything. That's just my opinion. Is that my feeling is that we should go forward hoping to merge with the absolute and no longer have an individual soul, but merge with. As a matter of fact, the license plate on my car says AIKYA, which is in Sanskrit is the word that describes the union between the Jivi and the Paramatma. That union between the individual soul and the big soul is really what it's all about. That's everything as far as I'm concerned. Everything that Swami is teaching, everything that he's asking us to do is all about merging, becoming one with the absolute, I think, you know. And in the meantime, he has us do all the activities, he has us do service, he has to read the teachings and study Swami's words. It's all about merging with the absolute, I think. And most of us are still attached to the world, you know, we still want to do things in the world. So I don't know. That's my thoughts on it.
Very, very interesting perspective and very factual, Brother Gene. But you know, again, when you observe, everybody knows, as you said, everybody knows that one day they have to die. And yet, in spite of knowing, and they also know that when they die, they're not going to carry even a pin with them. But yet, we continue to live. We continue to live as if, one, we will never die, or we are going to carry things with us because we attach ourselves so much to the material world, and logically knowing that I'm not carrying the wealth anywhere. If I die tomorrow, somebody else will drive my car. The money in the bank will be given to somebody else. So I know inwardly that I'm not taking anything. So why become attached to it? What are your thoughts on that? Why do we still are so attached, knowing that I'm not going to carry anything with me?
Maybe someone will figure out a way to remember the password to the bank account. So when you come back, you'd have the password to the bank. I don't know. You just remember one thing. Just remember this number, and you'll get your money when you come back. Because nobody else will know that number. Only you will know that number. So when you come back, you tell them that number, and you get your money. I'm just kidding. But that's probably everyone's dream. They say, I want all this stuff here. I want to keep everything when I come back. What they don't know is you're going to come back, because I believe Swami said the only thing you take to the other side is your deeds. And so knowing that, you better be good. Right? Hopefully you can remember to do some good while you're here. So when you come back, your karma won't be too bad. And speaking of karma, I got a story for you. This is a really good karma story. I think we only got a few minutes left, but this is a very good story about karma. There was a man who sat very close to Swami's door, and Swami spoke to him every day. And one day Swami called him in for an interview and said, next year you're going to go blind. And so you should prepare yourself for that. And sure enough, the next year, the man lost his sight. And Swami called him in and said, you should go and stay with your family in Delhi. They'll take good care of you there. You'll be better off than you would be here. And the man said, Swami, I don't care if I'm blind, if I'm here with you. Swami said, it'd be better if you went to Delhi with your family. He said, Swami, can I stay here? He says, yes, you can stay here, but it would be better. And I recommend that you go and stay with your family in Delhi. And he made it very clear to him that he should go to Delhi and stay with his family. So the man went to Delhi, and he was miserable, blind, and without sight. And after a few months, he sent a message to Swami, is there any way that I can come back now? I can't stand it here. This is terrible. I'm blind. I can't see anything, and you're there. Can I come be in Puttaparthi? And Swami said, yes, you can come, but I want you to stay there. And he stayed there. Another year went by, and he asked Swami, can I come to Puttaparthi? Swami said, no, it'd be better if you stay there. And after 3 years, Swami told him, yes, sent a message to him, come to Puttaparthi. I want to see you. And he came back to Puttaparthi, and Swami called him in for an interview and gave him back his sight. And he said, Swami, why didn't you do this before? I was terrible. It was terrible. I was awful being without you and being blind the rest of my life. He said, I'll tell you why. Because if you had stayed here, you would have been blind for the rest of your life. But because you went to Delhi, you burned up your karma. You were so miserable there that you burned up your karma, and I could give you back your sight now. And so that's an example of how whatever we do is going to follow us. It's serious business. You know, your every action goes into a bank account. You want to do good, good will come to you. You want to do bad, bad will come to you. And so it's a good motivator to do the right thing. We have karma, everything that we do. And if you get to the point, I think Swami has said that if you get to the point where you do every action for him, you become free of karma. You're no longer taking on, he takes it. You do every action for God, and then he takes the karma. You look nothing for yourself, every action for God, then he takes the karma. And obviously you'll do the right thing because you're doing it for God, right? And so that karma, he'll take it. And you'll be free of karma if you can do that.
Wonderful, wonderful story, Jean. Really amazing. Swami knows the past, present, and future. So his reaction, his advice, his recommendation is so different. And that guy was only seeing, that devotee was only seeing now. He just wanted to be there with Swami. And from what you described, it seemed that Swami's grace intervened after he had gone through that period of suffering to restore
his life. Yes. I got one more story about Swami knowing the future. This is a great one.
Go right ahead.
There was one day when I got two stories. One was that there's a fellow named Rajesh in Lagos that I met when I was filming in Lagos. He's one of Swami's students. And when he was in Darshan one day as a student, he came over, he was passing by, and he said, Rajesh, look over there, two little twin girls. And there were two little twin girls sitting over, little kids sitting over on the girl side, you know. And Rajesh couldn't figure out why Swami pointed out the two little girls. You know, he said, two twin girls, look. And now he's got two twin girls. And he knew what Swami was telling him at the time, that he knew he was going to have twin girls someday. And then he made him realize later, he realized why Swami said that, see, but at the time he didn't know. And another one, Swami was walking along in Darshan, and there was a group from Panama. This is hilarious. There's a group from Panama sitting in the Darshan, and he goes by and he points to one of the guys from Panama, President of Panama. And then he goes on. And all of his buddies from Panama, he's not the president of Panama. What is Swami talking about? And they made fun of him. They said, oh, the president of Panama, ha, ha, ha. Because they thought Swami made a mistake. You know, they said, Swami must have made a mistake because he's not the president of Panama. And they started kidding him about being the president of Panama and everything. You know, so and they were making fun of him and everything. And they went home and told everybody, Swami said he was the president of Panama, and they made fun of it. It was a big joke for a long time. Well, as it turns out, he got elected to like a city councilman or something, you know, it's like in an assembly. And he was such a good guy, and he did such good work that everybody loved the guy. And he got voted to be the president of Panama. And Swami, of course, knew that was going to be his future, you know. And so that's an example of Swami knows everything. So you just turn your life over to him, and you don't have anything to worry about. Are you going to have an easy time? Probably not. Because those of us that are with Swami, we get mashed, you know. We get mashed. We're going to get mashed. Swami's going to mash you. If you're a devotee, he's going to mash you, because that's how he remakes us. But knowing that Swami knows best, and if you turn your life over to him, that he'll take care of everything. I had a notice on my apartment door, get out. You haven't paid the rent, get out. And I didn't know what I was going to do. On Monday, I was going to get my stuff and move out. And the phone rang, and an investor from New York says, we want to put $100,000 into your business. And I said, you think you can do that by Monday? I didn't tell him my problem. But that's an example of how Swami will take care of you. And there was another time when I didn't have a dime, and I wanted to go to Guru Purnima so bad. I was going to get to be the cameraman again, and I didn't have the money for a ticket. And I remember thinking, Swami, if you're really God, you'll get me there sitting in front of you at Darshan. And I just remember saying that, you know, if you're God, you'll get me there, and I'll be sitting in front of you. Well, something happened, and somebody gave me a ticket or something. I forgot what it was, but somehow I got to Puda Party. And there was one day after I was wrapping up my camera equipment, because it had, you know, it'd been a darshan, and I had camera equipment. I've been filming, and everybody else had left the auditorium. Everybody had left Sai Kulwant Hall, and it was me and my camera wrapping up my equipment. And Swami came back out. And he came back out and sat right on the edge of the veranda, right in front of me. And so I sat down, and I was sitting in front of him. He was sitting there. Some other people came and sat down too, but with me, you know. But all of a sudden I realized he told me that I told him that I wanted to be sitting in front of him, and he gave me that. So he can take care of everything. We don't have to worry about anything. And I know you've got to finish, and I'm finished. And I thank you for the opportunity to be here with you today and to say these things and to tell you about my life. I'm very, very grateful.
Brother Gene, I could listen to you for hours sharing these wonderful Sai experiences. But I want us to spend a couple more minutes, because
sure,
it is so inspiring when you share these personal experiences, but more importantly, the life lessons that go with them. And you made such an important point that when you give your life to Swami, when you make him the top priority in your life, things may not go hunky-dory. You may go through a lot of trials and tribulations, but he is there in the midst. As we said in the beginning, do you think I would confront you with pain? Would there not a reason for it? So he's in the pain, he's in the sorrow, he's there with you. As the guy said, Swami, if I am blind, but you are there, it's quite all right. So once God is with you, you know, if God be with you, who can be against you? Greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. So even though we have to go through these challenges, Swami is there to guide, to give you the courage, the inner strength. And through that, you become closer and closer to him. And as you were talking about life and death, You know, in Islam, they have a saying, live every day as if it were your last. And every day you live, Brother Jean, is one day closer to the cremation site. So this is why we don't know when we will die. It could happen today, tomorrow, next year. And that should, as you rightly said, that should modify our attitude and change our way of life to the point where we can do good, be good, see good as much as we can, because we don't know when death is going to snatch us away. Very, very, very important lessons. And then, you know, listening to your life story, this adventure, you can make a movie about it. So you are your own movie director.
No one would care.
No, I'm sure people will be inspired. And it reminded me again about the 3 zeros Swami spoke about. And I think, Brother Jean, you probably know, where he tests you to see if you are a true devotee. And he said, the first thing I will do, he said, I will take away your family. Will you still love me? I will take away your wealth. Will you still love me? And finally, I'm going to destroy your reputation. Will you still love me? And you seem to have gone through all those 3 zeros, Jean, Brother Jean. And here you are, loving Swami, serving Swami to the best of your ability, living a simple life based on human values, and making a difference in your own little way by doing good, being good, and seeing good. So you are a tremendous inspiration, and I'm sure that every person who looks at this interview will be inspired in some way or another. So please share some closing, parting words as we bring this wonderful interview to an end.
Well, I first of all, I'm not qualified to give any advice to anybody, but I can say this. If you turn over your life to Swami, he will not disappoint. That's all you need to think about. Just turn it over to Swami. He'll not disappoint. Now, if you're suffering and you say, how can I turn it over to Swami? I don't have enough to eat, or I don't have a place to stay, or I'm suffering, or I've got cancer, or whatever. You still need to turn it over to Swami, and it won't matter. I tell my wife, I joke around, I say, don't worry about anything. We'll be dead before you know it. Because I'm 70, I'll be 74 in March, you know, and so what am I going to live? Another 10 years, maybe? And so we joke around often about, it's a short trip here. It's a class. It's like a kindergarten for the other side. And if you know that, and if you think about that, this is just a classroom. There's nothing here that's permanent. It's all temporary. There's nothing here that's permanent. And the joys that you get are temporary. Everything's temporary. The family's temporary. Your belongings are temporary. Your body's temporary. You're going to give up everything. So don't worry about anything. This is a short train ride to the coast. And at the coast, you're going to get off. And so knowing that at all times, what's there to worry about? You've got cancer? Okay, so you're going to die a few years before the next guy, you know? That's a tough one, you know, just to say that. Well, how can you say that? This person's suffering from cancer. There's some comfort in knowing that if you turn it all over to Swami, you'll be in his hands and you don't have anything to worry about. He knows you. He is you. He's in you, within you, around you, and just turn it over to him, and you'll let everything. Let him handle it. My wife says, did you turn it over? I got a problem with something in business. She said, did you turn it over to Swami? I go, oh yeah, I forgot. And so that's the secret. So in closing, all I can say is if you turn it over, you don't have anything to worry about because he's the doer, not you. You know, you think you're the doer. No, you're not the doer. He's the doer. And so if he's the doer, you don't have anything to worry about. just do your best and let Swami handle the rest.
Wonderfully said and very good advice, Brother Gene. And you know, as you said, everything in life is temporary. The only thing that is permanent, unchanging, that will never change is the Atma, God, the God consciousness. And that is what we must strive to identify with and to live in consonance with, so that we can live a purposeful, meaningful life. And as Baba says, as you said, life is just like a water bubble. 60, 70, 80 years just disappears in the blink of an eye, you know. So hold on to that, to identify with that which is permanent, that will exist beyond the body, beyond this physical world, and focus on that. And that will bring you joy, comfort, and happiness. So thank you very much for those wonderful words of advice. The Sri Satya Sai Global Council of Trinidad and Tobago, Brother Gene, wishes to express gratitude and appreciation to you for taking the time once again to share your personal journey and transformation and your perspective on the teachings of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. May Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba continue to bless you and guide you and your wife. And may you all continue to be loving instruments as his mission unfolds. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram.